This is the Final Word Daily, the England-India Daily to be precise. It's day 2 at Lord's. Geoff Lemon and Ben Jones coming from the hallowed turf. The show brought to you by New Brew. More about them later. But we have an entire day of Test cricket that might not have had all of the overs, but it had a lot of them, and Ben is going to tell you about all of them in the space of 30 seconds.
Yesterday was an absorbing but quite dull day. Today was absorbing but quite good day at Lord's. England came out this morning, were blown away by the brilliance of Jasprit Bumrah, who removed Ben Stokes, Joe Root and Chris Woakes in a matter of minutes. A bit of a fight back from Bryden Carson. Jamie Smith took England to 387, a reasonable score. We then kicked into the main action of the day. Jofra Archer, first over in over 1,000 days in Test cricket, takes a wicket with his third ball. Jasprit Jaiswal sent back to the pavilion. Lords comes to life, then goes back to sleep for a couple of hours, frankly. India closed the day on 145 for 3. They're 200 odd behind. And we've got a slow-burning Test match just starting to unfurl itself into life.
And perhaps most importantly, in the context of this series, Shubman Gill is out. Something that felt notable because he wasn't out for a huge score as he has been the other times, out for 16. But I think we've got to talk about fast bowling brilliance first up, and we'll come to Archer probably a little later in the course of the day, but start with Bumrah in the morning, where Bumrah had a trying sort of day yesterday, worked hard, bowled a fair bit, is being managed. All of those things are part of the equation. And then this morning, the burst. You start with Joe Root on 99 not out, who gets to his 100, streaky, edges it through the cordon, first ball of the day. A player who, in that innings, passed 3,000 runs against India alone, which is outrageous. He's the top scorer there by a mile, but also has 11 centuries against them now to match Alistair Cook. And at the other end, you've got Stokes on 39, who'd faced over 100 balls yesterday, who'd been grinding it out and was maybe going to be prepared to do the same thing again. And then Bumrah has bowled 8 balls, 8th ball of the morning, the one that goes through Stokes, absolutely outrageous. We've seen him bowl a lot of right-handers like that with the ball coming back in. Does this one around the wicket, same job, flips it over, mirror image just about, takes the very top of off stump, perfect piece of fast bowling, and then in his subsequent over, goes through Joe Root, inward movement, off the inside edge, middle stump, and then Chris Woakes feathering one. So 3 for 1 in 7 balls, that little burst from Bumrah. And suddenly it was like, oh, well, I wasn't quite the Bumrah you expected yesterday, but today I am.
It was one of those where both the Root and Stokes dismissals, 2 high-quality Test batsmen, both of them were out, kind of making it look as if, oh God, is that one kept low? Because it's confused them, it's deceived them to a degree we don't normally see. But no, it's just the lateral movement and the pace and the accuracy of the colossus that is Jasprit Bumrah. And he did have a hard day yesterday. He did go without the reward that he deserved. But today he tore England to pieces early on. Obviously, almost gets a hat trick. Almost gets Root, as you say, first ball, which I think it's the constant nature of the threat. I think that's the thing. These things develop over time across the series. We saw it in the Border Gavaskar that actually, yeah, he can bowl a brilliant spell on the first day or the first test, but it's the fact that he just keeps coming back. He keeps delivering, regardless of physical fatigue, regardless of, batters getting the opportunity to line him up. And to do what he did to Joe Root and Ben Stokes today, to give India a real foothold at that stage of the game when he goes through those 3 players, you're thinking that England are going to be well short of a good score. And on a slow, turgid pitch, all the good work that the hosts had done yesterday was going to be rendered obsolete. In the end, we saw that fight back slightly kind of flip that, but basically Bumrah decided, I'm the main character, I'm the guy that decides who wins these Test matches, and I've decided that it's going to be Shubman Gill's India.
Well, they'll have to do a fair bit with the bat if that thing is going to come to pass. But yeah, that was an interesting point. So Gill doesn't want to risk Bumrah too much. They give him a couple more overs after that burst, and then he's off. Jamie Smith and Bryden Carson doing the counter punching. Of course, Smith gets dropped, and I've seen a lot of angst about this from India supporters saying, the KL Rahul should have held onto that catch. That drop comes before Root and Woakes get out. So if that catch is held, then something else happens in the next Bumrah over, which might not be 2 wickets in 2 balls. So it's not as simple as saying that, had they taken that catch, the score would be X and Y, because we don't know what the score would have been. But there are a couple of other drops during that Smith and Carse partnership that were harder ones when they were attacking. But, they've got this sort of counter-punching ability, and Jamie Smith doesn't know how to take his foot off the gas as we saw in that absolutely bizarre series of decisions that he made towards the end of the previous Test match. In this instance, it worked a little better. He gets to 50, Cast gets to 50 as well a little later, and it seems like Bryden Cast slots in batting-wise really well at the moment, given that England have got Wokes at 8, Golden Duck today, but a lot of the time Wokes does hang around it and can just be a stable sort of calming influence, and then Cast can come in as a 9 and belt it, whereas if Wokes is out of the picture, Cast is probably batting 8, then there's a different layer of expectation on him, and he's less able or less likely to come out and play the kind of game that he played today. But it makes a big difference in the end, because if they're 260 for 4, you're thinking like 387 all out seems like a bad result from there. But 271 for 7, 387 seems a pretty good result from there.
Yeah, I think the dynamic between the Wokes and Cast 8-9 is quite similar to Australia with Cummins and Stark, in terms of one of them's meant to just come in and almost just quietly hand over to the set batter, and one of them is a bit more kind of like, hey, come on, let's get this over and done with and get the ball in hand. Cast is a really capable batter, and it made a big difference him supporting Smith in the way he did. It was quite a subtle innings for Cast until he teed off towards the end of it. I think Smith is rapidly becoming wasted at 7, and I think England will have to look at it, whether it's a promotion with or without the gloves. We spoke about it in variously over the last week or so, but this was a knock where you just think, yes, he doesn't know how to take his foot off the gas, but does he have many opportunities where he is allowed to just bat tempo and not have to be thinking, right, hang on, how many balls can Wokesy face, how many balls can Bryden Cast face, how many balls can Shoaib Bashir face, brackets not many. And I think that's something that they're adding an unnecessary challenge, I think, at the moment, to a young batter who is batting with a clear head and a clarity of thought that maybe is a product of being so young and inexperienced and so insanely talented. But I think going forward, I think England want to limit the number of opportunities where Jamie Smith is having to think about the guy at the other end rather than the bowler at the other end, if that makes sense. But they got to a good score. I think 387 was... Yeah. On a weird pitch, I think it was par, maybe slightly above par, given the movement that we did see through the air yesterday.
India's still a long way short of that, and 3 down could change pretty quickly. Jamie Smith, I'm less convinced. If the ball moves, I don't know how he's going to go against that sort of, like the way he got out today. It's a pretty simple outswinger that he's driving at. It's Siraj who'd had him put down already and who was animated about that. It wasn't, it was a good delivery, but it wasn't a delivery that should necessarily be foxing a player at this kind of level where it's just curving away from him a bit and he has a big drive. So particularly, I know we should have a moratorium on mentioning Australia, but I'm just thinking if they're flat pitches in Australia, Jamie Smith might make 800 runs in the series. But if they're doing a fair bit, as they have been in the last few years, then that's less convincing.
And I would say that is exactly the profile of player that England have been desperate for. England have had players who can nurdle and nibble and make sure that, they're going to see off the early move. And we've had a lot of Dom Sibleys. What England haven't had a lot of are guys who you go, well, if it doesn't move, they're going to absolutely belt it. And now you've got Zach Frawley, who's like that. You've got Ben Duckett, who's got that. You've got Jamie Smith, who's like that. You've got Harry Brook, who's like that. England have been grooming these batters for a reason. So if we've ended up with a batting order that's got those weaknesses, it's one that they've chosen and they're going to live with. And Jamie Smith is probably, given he's the latest arrival into the team and maybe the most talented aside from Root of the lot, I think they're gonna let him fail a lot in those kind of ways against fairly simple outswing, as you say, before they even worry about maybe even saying to him, Jamie, maybe just leave one, maybe just defend, maybe keep you close to your body. That's not going to happen. These boys, they're here for a good time.
So you have the little moment. Archer reappears with the bat before he reappears with the ball. Nice ovation from coming through the long room and all of that, back in it, back where he really made his mark in 2019 with the World Cup final and then the Ashes Test. Lords is the centre stage, the dance floor for the Jofra Archer story. Comes out, doesn't do much with the bat, nicks 4, and then gets bowled by Bumrah. Bumrah's 5th, so a nice coming together of the two just electric superstar bowlers, the ones who draw all of the attention. Bumrah getting on the honours board after that difficult day yesterday. Nice for him, doing it by knocking over Archer. And then Siraj gets his second by bowling Bryden Cast for 56. And then the Archer moment. So India start batting. Chris Woakes comes out, bowls a horrible first over, short and wide, belted twice, then on leg stump, belted a third time. 3 boundaries off the over for Jaiswal, who just monsters teams when he gets set. And then Archer comes in, beats the bat twice. And that delivery, I mean, I feel like maybe he's not getting enough credit for the ball that gets Jaiswal out, because it's on leg stump, and so it doesn't look like a great ball, but it seeps away massively, and Jaiswal's defending down the line of leg stump, and it's still able to take the edge and carry it a second slip with Archer's pace. So it must have just been electric at the ground when that happened after such a long wait. And third ball into his spell, he's back in the wickets column.
It was a really magic moment. I think the relationship with the English crowd and the English fan base and Jofra Archer is a really intense one, because he's played so rarely, but in so many of the moments where he has played have been some of the biggest moments in the history of English cricket. And so he carries with him this sense of being a spectacle, of being the big occasion. And when he took the new ball this afternoon, the crowd audibly, it's Lord's, it's the Lord's hum, it's pensioners quietly enjoying an afternoon out. It's not people getting up and about, and it was loud, and it was a proper cheer. It was everyone was engaged, everyone was in it. And as you say, that he immediately came down and bowled gas straight away. Within 5 minutes, he bowled a 93-mile-an-hour ball, the fastest ball of the series. He bowls this beautiful delivery, as you say, to take Yashasvi Jaiswal's outside edge. It's the kind of dismissal we saw a lot in the Border Gavaskar. We saw it from Scott Boland a lot. I mean, Jofra's doing it at 10 mile an hour quicker, which I don't think, in my relative experience of playing, makes it easier to play. I think that it was, we put a graphic on Sky today. It's the 3rd fastest new ball spell by an England bowler on record. It was just under 90 mile an hour average. This is what we've been waiting for. English cricket has been waiting for Jofra Archer to come back, to bowl gas, to be this charismatic centre point of the attack. It felt like, that's what we've been missing. Bryden Cast, good bowler. Chris Woakes, good bowler, maybe at the end of his career. Josh Tongue, interesting talent, but it's not a focal point. And Jofra walked out and just had the crowd in the palm of his hand. It was absolutely electric, and I would happily bottle that feeling and not see him play a test for another 5 years, and I'm waiting every second of those 5 years to do it again.
Please don't let that be the case. Let's just get him through this one first, and hopefully, maybe another in the series. See how careful they want to be with him, because they're very, very keen to not overbowl him at the moment. So Karan Nair makes a decent 40, played pretty nicely, has had a few of those starts in the series without doing anything big. He edges one in the end, which is the record-breaking catch for Joe Root, 211 it must be to have gone past. So he was sneaking up on Jai Wardner and Dravid, who was on 210. So Root took that one, screamer as well, one-hander, fingers on the turf, all the rest of it. And then that was off Stokes. And then the big one, Shubman Gill, who comes out. So he's out for 16. He's got Woakes, he's got Jamie Smith up to the stumps, little bit of wobble seam, little bit of movement away, tiny little feather. So he's at 601 runs for the series. This means that obviously, with the kind of things that we're tracking, 373 more runs he needs at the halfway point of the series to beat the Bradman record, which honestly I just never considered that anyone would ever get close to, and I don't think he will. And I've got some sort of rationale for this. So he's got 5 innings to go in theory, but he may not get 5, because if he makes a massive score, then you tend to either win by an innings and bat once, or the other side makes a big score and you end up with a draw where maybe you don't bat a second time either. And probability says you're going to have a couple of low scores. So Bradman in that 974 runs has 3 low scores out of 7. He only bats 7 times, but he makes 14, 8 and 1 in 3 of those innings. So this is one of those kind of innings. There are theoretically 5 to go. Maybe it's actually 3 to go or 4 to go. 1 or 2 of those will probably be low scores just by probability. So he still needs a couple of massive scores, and it's a big ask to try to keep that up over the course of 5 test matches. But it still felt like this huge moment in the game that because of everything he did in the last match, England had to snuff him out cheaply, and they were able to do it with just a mixture of some wily stuff. Someone bowling at 80 miles an hour rather than 95, and wobbling it away a little bit, and a keeper up to the stumps.
Yeah, I thought it was another good moment for Jamie Smith. It's the kind of dismissal that you'd see Ben Folkes take for Surrey, or when he was playing with England, and people would go bananas go over it. And actually, because it's a slightly unnatural keeper, a tall youngster rather than a seasoned handsome county pro with gauntlets in hand, people weren't quite so excited by it. But it's a really good take, and it's a crucial element that if they're going to nurse Wokes through this series as a different point of aggression with the attack, you can't just bowl that new ball spell and then go back to keeper back just drying up. He needs to be able to try things differently, and bringing the keeper up to the stumps gives it also dragged Gill further back. He made a very, very big point in the first two tests of batting out of his crease 2.3 meters down. It was really, really pronounced, that style, and that drew him back. So again, it's just these little things over the course of a series. I don't know if you've heard, but test series often ebb and flow, and there's often narrative within
both of those things.
And
both ebbing and flowing. Yeah,
they flow and ebb. And I think this is the kind of thing. Yeah, okay, interesting. You've done this. We're going to try this. We're going to just come at you with a slightly different angle of attack. And it was effective today. I think I know it sounds silly when it's 3 down, but this was a really impressive bowling performance from England, because this isn't a particularly exciting pitch. There was a little bit more in it today. Not a lot more, but a little bit more. And I think they got the rewards that they deserved, which was they stayed patient, they stayed accurate, they got reward for bringing in the fast bowler, they got reward for staying kind of true and loyal and being innovative with their experience quick. The only thing they didn't, I guess, was reward for sticking with Shoaib Bashir, but he only bowled a handful of overs, and I think he is going to become more influential as this test goes on, because it is hot. It's just after 7 o'clock here, or nearly 8 o'clock here, and I am still hot. I am warm, and I have been to Australia. I have been to warm places, and I'm still hot here. So I think it's going to turn. It is going to. This test is going to go in that direction, and so there's time for Bashir to make an impact on it. He didn't today.
I'll come to him in the Hall of Fame, but just the last bit on runs in a series, because we've got Rishabh Pant out there on 19 not out, so he'll resume tomorrow. He's already got 361 runs in the series, which is already his best series. 24 players ahead of him. If he makes another 50 tomorrow, he could knock off half of them in one go. Jamie Smith is one of those. He's on 407. So the 74-75 Ashes in Australia with Alan Knott and Rod Marsh is the only other time that both wicket keepers made more than 300 runs in a series. And those guys had 11 innings to do it in. These two have had 5, and Rishabh hasn't finished his 5th. So it is the most keepery, runsy series that has ever been recorded. And they're halfway through it. And who knows what Rishabh's going to do tomorrow. This is like, I'm in the wrong time zone for this, but I'm probably up at 6 a.m. so that I can see what Rishabh does first ball tomorrow, because that is what I'm most interested in the day's play.
Quite a weird ground for Rishabh, because obviously we don't think of him as having a strong area to hit, because he does hit all around the ground, but because Lord's is such a strange shape, you get these massive pockets that are kind of normally where he'd hit the ball. And I feel like he's going to try at some point today to hit, like, or some point tomorrow, I should say. He's going to try and hit an 80-metre 6, and it's going to still land short. It's because it's such a weird venue, Lords, for many, many reasons. It doesn't feel befitting of Rishabh's particular brand of madcap weirdness. But yeah, I mean, as is true of every day, I'm looking forward to watching Rishabh Pant bat tomorrow, because it's a day ending in Y, and Rishabh Pant is batting. It'll be. They've got a long way to go. They've got a lot of runs to recover if they're going to get themselves back into this test match. And I think if they're going to win, they're going to need to go past England by a fair old way. But Rishabh, given the pace that he does score at, is going to be crucial to them doing that before things start to deteriorate in the way that I mentioned with regard to the heat. It's still on my mind.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to give their bowlers enough of a rest, as well as the runs that they make. Hall of Fame in a moment. A reminder about New Brew, who are supporting this show. It's a drink to support brain health and performance. That's fundamentally what it's about. Whole range of ingredients that are studied and have indications that they contribute to brain function. They're called nootropics. If you get the right combination, it can potentially give your brain a boost in terms of things like sharpness, memory, focus, things like that. The good thing about New Brew is everything's listed. You can go to their website, you can look up all the ingredients, and you can follow those up yourself to see what studies there are and what information there is that tells you that this might be beneficial for you. So newbrew.com/final word is the website. You get 15% off there. They've got a range of flavors and a range of different types with different formulations, different things in them. Some that help you sleep, like the Lucid one, but yeah, the premier one is the Advantage, which is the basic sort of the default product that they have, which is about focus, memory, mental sharpness, things that people want and need a little bit of help with. So newbrew.com/final word if you want to go and have a look at what they've got to offer. We'll be back in a moment. It is the final word. It's the Hall of Fame in the England-India Daily. Ben Jones, I'm gonna tell you what I was thinking. This isn't the most exciting one. It's not the most hilarious. It's not. It didn't jump out at me. It just sidled up to me and said, this is amusing. And it was Shoaib Bashir coming on late in the day with Rishabh Pant at the crease. And looking at Shoaib's series, he's turned up 3 innings out of 4 with the ball. The other one of those, he went for 90. He's taken a few wickets from being slogged, but he's not had a happy time. And then you've got Rishabh, whose number one favourite thing to do is hit off spinners over long on or over long off or over deep mid-wicket. And there was such tension between the two of them late in the day because Rishabh wanted to do it. He wanted to do it. But he didn't Jamie Smith himself. He held himself back a little bit. And then he played the aggressive sweep along the ground, and that made him feel a little bit better for an over or so. But then he went back to being anxious. But you could see that, and Bashir's a bit anxious. He's nervous as well because, he's had a horrible time in this series and they're sticking with him, and it must feel awkward. But he knows he's here where he took wickets against Zimbabwe in that previous test, so he's thinking, well, maybe this will be the difference for me. He was anxious but kind of wanting Rishabh to go at him to see if he could draw a mistake. Rishabh was trying to resist going at him, and in the end nothing happened. If you look at the scorecard, you'd see he bowled half a dozen overs and went at about 3.5, and Rishabh didn't play a lot of aggressive shots, but every single ball it felt like there was a question being posed, which is it going to happen this delivery? And then no, it's not. But it was still compelling viewing for nothing happening.
I mean, to recycle an old line from my Twitter, there was when he played a fall away, slap over his shoulder sweep type thing. He rolled his wrists on it to keep it down, which I thought was a little bit like turning up to a black tie dinner only wearing the black tie. It's like, I've done what you told me to, but I'm not doing it how you want me to. Yeah, it was wonderful. It's always wonderful. I love the boy to death. So my I've got 2 Hall of Fame nominations. One is led by they're both nerdy in various ways actually. One was, I think it was Bryden Cast hit a 6 today, straight down the ground. Mm-hmm. And Nasser called it on comms and said he's cleared the ropes, gone all the way. And then the umpire turned around and for those of you watching, did the sign for a 4. Mm-hmm. And everyone went, oh, that's a bit weird. And it was registered as a 4. And then about 3 overs later, we all went into meltdown on TV, and all the scoring went into meltdown because it was confirmed that it was in fact a 6. And you could watch it back and you could see it was a 6. It went about 5 meters over the boundary. And I just think I quite like, on some level, the fact that there's about 800 cameras at this ground. There's about 30,000 people. I reckon the only person who thought it was a 4, not a 6, was the one man who had the power to control it and stuck his hand out rather than sticking both hands up and denied England a crucial 2 runs, which they have then subsequently been given back because cricket.
Yeah, you can. It's the one.
It's about justice.
Umpiring thing you can change retrospectively, isn't it? That if runs are miscounted, you can.
Exactly.
But you can't. But you can't like get a leg by turned into a run if subsequently there's a spike on Snicko that shows that you edged it into your pad. So there are limits to what can be reconstructed after the event. And
that's probably right, because otherwise we'll be re-legislating every game forever and always, amen. The other Hall of Fame nomination that I'm going to throw in was inspired by a friend of the podcast, host of the podcast, Cameron Ponsonby, who, when Joe Root passed the record for most catches by an outfielder in Test cricket, which is a remarkable achievement for anyone, but Cam immediately saw the dark side of the equation and messaged and said, how many drops has he got? Does he also have the record for that? And the answer is no, he doesn't quite have the record for it. He's about 5 drops behind Alistair Cook for the record since records began. Now, that's only since 2006. I'm sure someone else has dropped more. But in terms of things that we can check, Root's got another record in his sights. He could, in theory, end up as Test cricket's leading ever run scorer, leading ever catchist, and also leading ever droppist. And I think that is the kind of petty, dark, yin-yang, give with one hand, take with the other kind of nonsense that I can really get behind. And I think Test cricket is perfectly poised to serve up.
If you play long enough, if you've got the most hundreds, you'll eventually get the most ducks. If you've won the most matches, you'll eventually lose the most matches. If you get the most praiseful front pages of the paper, you'll get the most calls for your sacking on front pages of the paper. It will happen. There are two sides to life. There is balance, and on our show there is Geoff Lemon, there is Ben Jones. We are the balance for today. This has been the Final Word Daily. Thank you, Ben, for joining us from Lords. Thanks to everybody listening. Or if you're watching, you can do both of those things. You can also support the show, patreon.com/thefinalword. Check the show notes for the links and offers, etc., including from Newbrew. And that's it. That's us. We'll be back on day 3 to see what Rishabh has done. That is the question that must be answered. See you soon.